Really start to dig in on who's to blame and why. One of the things that just really hit me today was I was spending some time talking with people around the NFL, just getting some tidbits and information about the Raiders, getting their opinions. And one of the things that stood out to me in that conversation was when one person said to me, if you look, they're 30th in points scored at 18.6 a game. Excuse me, at 16.6 a game. And they're nearly 2 points behind where last year's was. Yet they have the big money free agent that they wanted at quarterback. And they've got Ashton. They're better there. Yet the team looks worse with the highest paid offensive coordinator. Now, I want you to know I apologize. I intended to ask Chip Kelly about that today, but got into had a car issue and missed his press conference just a few moments ago. So I apologize, or I wouldn't just ask it here. I would have asked him about it. But the issue becomes this Raider team with presumably better talent. This offense looks worse, and that's very intriguing. Now you could ask, is it Chip Kelly? Is it the team as a whole? It's not the defensive fault. Certainly not the defense's fault. But they just cannot score points. I mean, that is almost sacrilegious to say about a Raider team, but let's face it, it has been a long time since they were a prolific scoring team. And so when you're digging into the offense, I think there are several things you have to look at why the offense is not working. Number one, it clearly hurts Jacoby when Brock Bowers is not out there, because the teams are just refusing to let Jacoby beat them. I had someone ask me earlier this week, I think it was Monday on a radio show, how has Jacoby disappeared? He hasn't disappeared, but he's getting double coverage because they don't have to take care of Brock. And so that's eliminated him. So what it's really done is created a Trey Tucker, Jack Bech, Dante Thornton, Ian Thomas type situation. And I don't think any of us would argue that if you take those guys compared to Michael Mayer, Brock Bowers, and to Jacoby, there is no comparison. So that's the first thing. Brock not being there hurts for the obvious reasons of Brock, but Brock not being there also hurts Jacoby. So that's number one. Number two, Dante Thornton is just not playing well. He's getting reps. He's getting opportunity. He's a rookie. This is not a throw Dante Thornton away. It's a rookie learning, but this is why when you have to rely on, you may remember the last couple of weeks at camp, it almost started when the 49ers came here for joint practices. I told you his game was really falling off, and he's yet to really take a step. I thought Jack Bech, after Pete Carroll made it very publicly clear that he was unhappy with the amount of reps he got more last week, played really well. I was very impressed with Bech last week. Trey, we know how Trey can play. They've got to get him more involved. But I think there are some concerns about some of the routes that are being run, and that goes back to Chip and Chip's passing game. I think there are concerns on the utilization of Ashton Jeanty. Now, remember 2 weeks ago, Pete made it very clear he was unhappy with the usage of Bech. That changed. Pete made it very clear he was unhappy with play calling yesterday. You can go watch the video. He said, talking about a player, they don't call the plays. Talked about, how some things have been done, not the way he does it. So I expect there to be a significant difference in play calling. Significant. And so then there's the usage of Ashton. I talked about Ashton gets you down the field, and then you go into a shotgun. It's scratching my head. And so I think the biggest issue facing this team between offense and defense is clearly offense. Now, I'm not saying that the defense has been perfect. It has not. but I thought Darian Porter's really played well for a rookie, especially. Thought Eric Stokes has been fine. I'm concerned about Isaiah Pola-Mao. I told you guys I thought next year would be an all-pro year. I still do, but I'm concerned about him and his performance. And that is concerning with me because I believe in him, and I know that the Raiders do too. So I'm gonna watch Jack very close this week. I expect the Raiders to come out this weekend running the football. Now, I think the fact that Pete had to make it clear about his intent, his concern about Jack Bech last week, and I think Pete's press conference yesterday should not be alarming to Raider fan, but I think it should absolutely be concerning. When you have to go make it publicly clear that you're unhappy with a performance of a coordinator publicly, that is a concern. Now, I believe there are people in the building who would say, well, he didn't make it clear that he's concerned. Well, when you're complaining about how a player's being used, yeah, you are. And if you don't like that narrative, well, that's the real narrative. When you say that, hey, that's not how we call plays, or talk about in the past, or the players aren't making the play calls, or whatever, that's making it abundantly clear. You can whitewash that, you can call it anything you want, but that's what it is. And I think it's very fair when you have the highest paid offensive coordinator in the game of football, $6 million per year, and your offense looks worse when you have allegedly upgraded. That is a legitimate question. It's 100% legitimate. And I think right now, I'm going to get to special teams in a minute, but I think for now, those are legitimate questions. I plan on tomorrow asking Pete specifically about how much more involved did he get with his coaches this week. Now, we know a head coach is always involved. But again, I've said this before. Tom McMahon, very respected around the NFL, but his side of the ball has not been good this year. That's just a factual statement. How much more involved are you with special teams? I'm going to ask him that tomorrow. I think it's also fair to, talk about the offense with Pete. I'm going to talk to him about that tomorrow as well. And of course, we'll have that video for you. But the entirety of this team's failure is not on the offense, but I think the majority of it is. And NFL people agree with me, who I talk to outside the building. Inside the building, they're going to circle the wagons, and that's what they should do. If I owned a franchise, it's what I would expect. But when you look at this team and where they're at, to be 30th or 29th in scoring is completely unacceptable. I said this the other day, and I'll say it again. Mark Davis has got to be sitting there looking at the money that he's paid all these people who are no longer here, looking at all the money he's paying those who are here, and asking himself, what's a guy have to do to break 21 points around here? And those would be legitimate questions for him. Legitimate questions for him. Let's turn over to special teams. It isn't just one facet. It's a few. Now, I know that part of what's hurting special teams around the entirety of the NFL is a lot of different new rules. That's fair. But not every team is doing poorly. And a lot of what the Raiders are doing is miscues. Those are concerns. Absolute concerns. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't have a concern when you get to the 35-yard line and in. Those should be almost automatic kicks, especially indoors. Okay? You start getting to 55, 57, 59 yards. I don't have an issue when a kicker misses that. I'm not going to hold that against Daniel Carlson. I'm not. I know there are people that hits him. I've seen him hit long field goals. But the percentage goes, exponentially down. But those are legitimate questions about the special teams. Some of the special teams blocking, schemes, all of that are legitimate questions. Do I think they've hurt this team? For sure. Do I think special teams has cost them a win? We know that it has. We know that it has. But if the offense had scored any type of points like they should, it would have never come down to a Daniel Carlson field goal that didn't make it. That obviously was unsuccessful. And the other team has pros also. So I think those are questions that you can legitimately ask and say to yourself, what is going on there? What's happening there that this is not succeeding? Defensively, again, I think the Raider defense has been pretty good against the run. I think a lot of the defensive issues, they need the offense to do something. And you're going against, a league that is tilted in favor of the offense. And so, then when you have an offense that can't do anything, that you can't get a break, it's just brutal. It's just brutal. I think you have to, I think there's a lot of questions that have to be asked. There are some decisions that were made of John Spytek that you have to question. I think there's been some decisions by Pete that, you have to ask questions about. And so really you say, well, who's to blame? I think you can find a lot of blame that's fair. But if I had to pick the biggest question mark or the biggest problem on this team right now, it is clearly the offense. I want to make it clear. I'm not exonerating any of the team. You win as a team, you lose as a team. But if I was asked, would you point out what you think is the biggest problem with this team? It sits right at the offense. Where again, you have a $6 million a year offensive coordinator. Clearly, the Raiders thought he was an elite coach who could flip an anemic offense around. You go get the big buck quarterback. You go get the, best running back in the draft since Saquon Barkley. And he is, by the way, the best since then. He isn't Saquon, but he's the best. And you've got real questions. What is it going to take to get this offense to even remotely on a week-by-week basis look like an NFL offense? Now, I'm going to say something to you. If you think this is too harsh, well, then you owe an apology to last year's offense. Because we said the same things about last year's offense, and this one's worse. Statistics, they don't lie. They don't lie. I mean, they are what they are. And what they are is worse. Yeah, but what about worse? Okay, but you understand, Gino, worse. All right, but Hondo, did you think about worse? It's what they are. They're worse. And yet, you just went, and the kids today would say you spent bank or gave bag to Chip, and you're worse. Ain't lying. Worse. So, do I think there are other units special? Okay, yes. I think that the problems here, if you're looking strictly on field, offense, special teams, defense is a distant third. Okay. I think the biggest problem right now hurting this team is I think two of your three coordinators are really struggling. Tom McMahon and Chip Kelly. Chip significantly more than Tom. He's paid a lot more money than Tom and a lot more money than Patrick. And arguably, Patrick's side of the ball is outperforming him. So when you look at who is to blame, there is a lot of areas. I think you can go everywhere from Tom Brady and John Spytek all the way down to players. But if you're looking significantly at what has to improve, it has to be Chip Kelly in the offense. And why is it? I have theories. I think there's some concerns with the offense. There is no doubt that Chip can coach offense and coach it very well. There's no doubt that he knows offense. But if you looked at Philly, he had great success early, then the league kind of figured out his defense. I think that there is some predictability with him. But now it's up to him and the Raiders. I mean, they have a long-term marriage. And so it's a matter of go figure it out. Go figure it out. You're paid to be the best offensive coordinator in the NFL, which is true. And that doesn't mean you're going to be scoring 50 points a game. That's not fair, and we're not going to put unfair expectations. But it does mean after 5 games, you should have figured it out and freaking fixed it, and you just scored 6. 6. 6. I mean, 6. Mm-hmm. So I think that is the onus right now. There are a lot of problems. I have a friend named Gary Wildman who was his family raised sheep in South Dakota. And he taught me a story once that every spring they would go out and pick up all the big rocks because of the frost had pushed rocks up into the pasture and pick up all the big rocks. And then after they picked up all the big rocks, they'd go back and pick up all the medium rocks because you couldn't see the medium rocks where there was a lot of big rocks. Then after you picked up the medium rocks, you go through and pick up the small rocks because you couldn't see the small rocks when there were medium rocks and big rocks. You say, what's the point got to do? At the time when he told me the story, he was talking about people and our character. How do we develop our character? And our character is deal with the big things first, then go on and you'll see other things. And with each level, every time you improve your character, you find more and more things that you can fix. Well, it's the same thing. I think there are a lot of problems with the Raiders right now, but they've got to go after the big rocks. And the big rocks happen to be the offense. And then a pretty big rock, special teams. Just get those even to a modicum of respectability. And this team right now would not be sitting here at 1-4. I think the team would be sitting here at 2-3 at the very worst, but I think they'd be at least sitting here 3-3. I mean, excuse me, 3-2, not 3-3 because they only played 5 games. So deal with the big rocks. They got to get the offense and the special teams back in order. But there is a lot here. So who's to blame? There's a lot. Why? I think we're still trying to figure that out, but we're looking for those whys. We're digging, picking up rocks. And right now, Pete Carroll needs to grab out the old tractor and go over to his offense and start picking up big rocks and get as involved as he needs to be. To me, this is, hey, Chip, you may have a long-term deal. You may make $6 million a year. You may be the highest-paid offense coordinator. Great, great, and great. I'm the head coach. I got to fix it. I think you saw it last week when he, talked about wanting to see more of Jack Bech. I think you saw it yesterday, and we'll see where that goes from there. But for right now, who's to blame? I think a lot of it. But dear Lord, they've got to do something with that offense. It's terrible, and they've got to do something with special teams. And yes, there are issues with defense, but those aren't the big rocks. We're dealing with big rocks right now, and that's where it is. Because I was just talking to several of my colleagues in the media about this. Cannot fathom the Raiders losing on Sunday. I just can't fathom it. But we can certainly, yeah. Well, there's been a lot of losses in my 6 years here. God bless all of you who've been Raider fans for the last 20 plus years. There's a lot of unfathomable losses. Carolina last year, the Colts when Jeff Saturday was their coach. Dear Lord. Been a lot of them. A lot. And so what I would say to you, though, is it's unfathomable. What could see it? And Raiders got to be picking up these rocks right now. This sits squarely on coaching. Mark Davis doesn't carry any. I mean, he's the owner, and everything rises and falls on leadership. Mark Davis has written every check he's been asked to write. Mark, we need a check. Hey, Mark, can you get a check for this? Mark, we need a check for this. Everyone. That's what you want from an owner. I can't tell you the number of NFL people I've talked to who said, man, that's got to be awesome to work for an owner that if you tell him this is what this is going to do to help us win, write it. Write it. I think Mark Davis, sitting up in his perch, needs to absolutely look at everyone under him under the organizational flow chart. Say, all right, I wrote the checks. You told me this was going to happen. What's going on? I want answers. I want answers. Now, you can make arguments that maybe you think in the past Mark has trusted the wrong people. I think that would be fair. Fair. But you bring in, you write the checks. You bring in a very good coaching staff. You bring in high-profile minority owners. You give them the GM they want. You give them what they want. And it's not the end of the year. We're certainly not calling for anyone to get fired. God help us. No, we're 5 games in, a lot of season left. But you're very close to being 6 weeks into the year and your season being over. It may not be statistically, but any modicum of competing is dead. Now, I had someone say to me this morning, would there be any more of a Raider thing than to lose to Tennessee and go up and win in Kansas City? And I thought that was kind of funny. But this is a franchise with a terrific owner who's willing to do what a lot of other owners won't. And I think it's important to point that out. But I think everybody under him on the organizational flow chart should absolutely be taken under the microscope saying, are you making this better or are you making this worse? And I'm sorry, when you put $6 million large up for an offensive coordinator and you're worse than last year, and you, oh, by the way, got your big money free agent quarterback that you wanted, and arguably more talented, but it doesn't look like it. Those are legitimate questions. Got to take care of the big rocks, though, right now. Can't worry about little rocks or medium rocks. Go after the big ones.